is Expand Your Horizon Preview Edition for the game starting on Wednesday, February 4th, 2026, and ending on Saturday, February 7th. I am Bob McDonald, and joining me is my co-host Jim Sarro.
Hey Bob, thanks for having me as we get ready for a 2 days of basketball on the Horizon League this week. Got 10 games on the docket, and I wouldn't say there's a marquee game, but there's a lot of really compelling games for a lot of teams that really need some victories right now.
Absolutely. And of course, the Expand Your Horizon Preview Edition is sponsored by the Horizon League, which reminds you to make your plans to be in Indy March 8th through the 10th for the 2026 Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. After you get all of the insights from us here at the Horizon Roundtable, visit horizonleague.com for championships information, merchandise, life in the league stories, golden hour content, and much more. Remember, March starts here in Indianapolis at Corteva Coliseum, March 8th through the 10th. And let's get into it. On Wednesday, we've got a crush of 7 p.m. Eastern games. So let's start with the one that's on ESPNU, shall we? Wright State heading to Moon Township to play Robert Morris, and it's really gonna take a lot for someone to beat Wright State. Maybe they disguise themselves as Cleveland State. I don't know.
I'm not going to predict anything because I've said that Cleveland State was going to lose to Wright State. I said that Oakland and Purdue Fort Wayne were going to hit the over on whatever the combined score was going to be, and those things did not come to fruition. But in the Wright State game, you do have a team that's playing really, really well in Wright State. Just like no flaws. They're good at rebounding. They're good at defending. They're good at shooting. They just do a little bit of everything. They've got some depth. Their young players are growing up right in front of our eyes. And then in Robert Morris, you kind of have like I don't want to say a one-trick pony, but like their defense hasn't been that good. Their offense is just kind of mid. The only thing they really do well is rebound the ball. And if they've had games where they were plus 10 on the glass and still lost. So I don't really know what to make of Robert
You mean
Morris.
like last game?
Like the last game, yes, correct. But when Robert Morris puts it all together, they're as good as anybody in this league. So the matchup is still compelling, but Wright State isn't going to beat themselves, and
No.
there's a reason why they're 10-2 and at the top of this league, and they're on a 3-game win streak, and and going on the road, they just went to Wisconsin and got a sweep. So going on the road to Moon Township is not really going to phase them. It's going to be a really good test for Wright State to just keep proving how legitimate they are.
Yes, and keep proving us constantly wrong about our preseason predictions. That's the youth movement is on in Fairborn, Ohio, I tell you. Just making us look and I'm okay with that. All
Good
right,
for them.
good for them. All right, well, let's go to the next 7 p.m. Eastern game, and we're at the Wolstein Center. We got Oakland playing Cleveland State, and if you'd have told me that Cleveland State was going to rip off 4 games, 3 of them on the road, I'd have told you were insane. But somehow, some way, Cleveland State and that 3-point shooting of theirs, apparently they're just shooting with reckless abandon at this point in time, and they made it work. They made it work in Wisconsin, and they haven't done that in years.
Yep, they made it work in Wisconsin. They were really good shooting the ball against Green Bay. Their actions were tough to defend for a team in Green Bay that doesn't have a ton of length and athletic ability. And then they, are kidding around about the cold gym and that Milwaukee plays in, and they were still hot there. So you've got both teams riding high right now. Oakland on a 3-game winning streak. You have Cleveland State on a 4-game winning streak. Cleveland State, gaining relevance in this league at 5-7 because of that win streak. Second best 3-point shooting team in the league, 39.9%. The opportunity for Oakland, they're not a great rebounding team overall, even with their length, but Cleveland State's still the 9th best rebounding team and gets out rebounded by 4 a game on average. So
Yes.
It will be, again, you've got Oakland going on the road, but Oakland's been really good on the road. They're road tested. This is not, shouldn't phase them one bit, but just a really good matchup. And quite frankly, if you were kind of thinking about where things are at with this league right now, if you were picking this week, that might be the ESPN game over the Wright State Robert Morris game, just because both teams are hot right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't dispute that. All right, well, let's move into the next 7 o'clock game. It's at Truist Arena. Jim, it's Green Bay going to play Northern Kentucky, and if there were two teams that needed to win, it's both of these teams because Northern Kentucky did not do well in Michigan, and Green Bay did not really do well at home.
They did not. It just makes me think of the old the Quentin Tarantino movie Reservoir Dogs, if you remember that one from way back in the 1990s. And Bob, you're old enough that you would. And there's a
Oh, I
scene.
absolutely am.
Yep, there's a
When it
scene.
was first run in the theater.
Yes, and there's a scene in that movie where he's cutting off the guy's ear, and the song that's playing in the background is stuck in the middle with you. And that's how I feel
Yes.
about this game. Is that Green Bay and Northern Kentucky, both teams just
Nice visual, by the way. I'm sure the
eh,
Horizon League's gonna love that.
hey, you know what? We're trying to bring a little entertainment value to our Expand the Horizon podcast, and so
And we are.
and I
Please
just think
renew
about
us
that.
for another season.
But I think about that, like Green Bay 7-6. You've got Detroit
Yeah.
Mercy 6-6, Northern Kentucky 6-7, Robert Morris 6-7, and Cleveland State at 5-7. Like this, there's just a crush in the middle, and this is two teams desperate for a win. Two teams that play like kind of a different style of basketball.
Yeah.
Northern Kentucky playing faster and faster. Their tempo is up to 55. Green Bay, playing slower and slower. They're at 353 in tempo. The concerning thing for the Phoenix, though, is their defensive efficiencies in Ken Palm have just plummeted. They're at 336. At the same time that their offense continues to, rise, they're at 127 in the offensive efficiency. Like Green Bay is playing really good offensive basketball. Quite frankly, their offense was good enough to win both games this past weekend, and their defense completely, wasn't there for them when they needed it. So you're just kind of seeing it's going to be a tale of like, can Green Bay defend? And Northern Kentucky, this is kind of like anti what I think of Northern Kentucky, but they're number 2 in the league in 3-point field goals attempted, 357 in conference play.
Mhm.
And when I think about that, and they've been really streaky, but Green Bay's 3-point defense, field goal is just getting worse and worse. There was a couple weeks ago they were at 31.1, number 1 in the league. They've fallen to number 8 at 36.6%. So if Northern Kentucky is going to hit shots, and Cale Robinson didn't exactly hit shots against them the first time. He's coming off a game, in Detroit where he was really struggling. But if Northern Kentucky's making threes, that will bode well for the Norse at home against the
Yes.
Phoenix.
All right. Well, we've got one more 7 p.m. Eastern game, and it's Youngstown State, and they're going to Fort Wayne to play Purdue Fort Wayne. Um, I don't really understand. I mean, somebody needs to really walk me through what's going. I mean, what's really going on with Youngstown State? Because I kind of don't get it. I feel like they're better than their record indicates, but yet somehow things just aren't working out for them this year. I mean, they're sitting near the bottom of the standings. I mean, they did win, they did beat IU Indy, but that's IU Indy. And so they really need to turn it around in this last month of the season. And they're going to try to do it against a Purdue Fort Wayne team that has what? 1/6 of the, I want to say 1/6 of the last 7, I want to say. And pretty well took care of business against Robert Morris pretty handily by double digits. I I feel like this game is a lot more evenly matched. I feel like again like in the last contest, I feel like that Youngstown State they I feel like they have the advantage up front, but it just seems like it hasn't really and it just hasn't really helped them. And I feel and I we gotta remember that this is that was kind of the last game. They were in the middle of that. That was a game that Youngstown State could have easily beat when they played them in Youngstown. When they played Purdue Fort Wayne, Youngstown could have beat them, and they lost. That's kind of chalk that up to a little bit of some of the bad luck they've had to experience.
Yeah, I think for both these teams, like this game's pretty simple to me. Both teams shoot a lot of threes. Now, in the
Yes.
case of Fort Wayne, they're streaky, but they have hit more as the season has moved along. Youngstown is number 1 in 3-point field goals attempted, which is crazy when you think about the composition of their team, in that you have a bunch of guys that are 6'7" or 6'6", and Carroll and Rolf and Vlad, and like they're not doing any damage inside. They're taking threes, and unfortunately they're not hitting at that high of a clip right now. But
Yeah.
if they get, if they're shooting well, they definitely should be able to out rebound Purdue Fort Wayne. So if they can just get enough shots up and and protect the ball, like, I mean, they've had games where they shot well and they just had way less attempts because they turned the ball over. So for Youngstown, it's really about protecting the ball and taking better shot quality. And for Fort Wayne, is continue to do what you do. Like your recipe is your guard play and just getting enough
Yeah.
from your bigs. It's hard to argue against what Fort Wayne's doing. They're doing it with a relatively inexperienced team. It's basically a 3.5-man team, and then everybody else is just kind of filling in and giving the main guys some relief. So
Yeah.
I think it's definitely going to come down to 3-point shooting, because there's going to be a lot of them. I mean, both teams have over 350 3-point field goals attempted in conference play. So
Absolutely. All right. Well, next up, we got the last game on Wednesday is the 8 p.m. It's Detroit Mercy's time in Wisconsin, and they are going to be in Milwaukee on Wednesday, and it's an 8 p.m. start. I had to double check. This is actually the first time they're playing Milwaukee. And they're kind of hitting Milwaukee again. Milwaukee just seems to be really hurting. Uh, I mean, I don't know if there's a timetable for Jovanovic or Fields to come back, but at the same, and I feel like that's going to work to Detroit Mercy's advantage, because it seems to me that they've been very, very good up front with between. I mean, there's still. I know Legend Jeter. I mean, not Legend Jeter. London Maiden has been limited, but Legend Jeter and Ryan Callambay have been able to pick up the slack. And Josh Dixon and Stevie Elam have been outstanding. Those two freshmen have been outstanding. But Tyler Spratt was freshman of the week last week, so maybe they cancel each other out. I don't know. I feel like they do, really.
Well, and I can answer one of the questions. Danilo is definitely out for the season. That got confirmed by Coach Lundy over the weekend after
Okay.
one of their two games.
That's
Yeah,
terrible.
so that's a big blow. And he was, I mean, a fantastic player. Apparently, it's a similar injury, the same injury he's had in the past. So, unfortunately, the Panthers have confirmed that Danilo is going to be out for the season, and that puts them in a bind because they're down to like 10 guys that can play. Because Tate McKenzie was not dressed. So they had and two of those guys were walk-ons that they had. So they really had 8 guys. And then they didn't get a lot from some of those guys. There was maybe a little, some of the older guys not happy that they weren't playing in the last game. So we don't really know what we're going to get from Milwaukee. But with that said, they went toe-to-toe with Cleveland State, who's white hot right now, or red hot, or whatever the color the hot is. Is white hot hotter than red hot? Is that the?
My understanding is yes. That is.
Yes, I'm not a science guy, so but they're just really hot.
I got
They
a
went
C
toe to
in
toe.
physics, so I'm not any better than you.
Yeah, they spell physics with an
But it
F,
was
right?
hard physics, okay?
Yeah. I thought the F in physics was how you spelled physics, but apparently it was just my grade. So anyway,
Not good at English either.
oh geez, do we have how much time do we have? Anyway, so
No, we do not.
yeah, so this game though, when you think about Detroit, they've done a good job of shooting. The non-conference, they were just woefully shooting the three. They are, they've really, come around. They're number 1 in the league right now for 3-point field goal percentage at 40.5%. And conversely, Milwaukee is struggling to shoot. They're at 32.5%, and they're struggling to defend. They're, the 9th worst defensive field goal percentage in the league. So I feel like this is going to be another game where Milwaukee's just going to have to figure out, in the end, can they get their guys, in position, play tough enough to win, even with all the odds up against them, because the stats don't necessarily favor them, but the heart and hustle of the guys that do play, you can't really rule out this Milwaukee team. And the game's at home. If it's when things are difficult, it's always better to be at home. So this is a big game though, because Detroit Mercy was dead in the water there for they got swept at home, and two weekends ago, and then they got a big win over Northern Kentucky to kind of get themselves back going in the standings. But this is like, to my point of being stuck in the middle with you, this is a big one because even
Oh yeah.
Milwaukee, they're 5-8, so it's not like, on one hand, it feels like they're on life support to avoid a play-in game, and on the other hand, they're right there, could be playing in a decent seeded game in the Horizon League tournament. So there's a lot to play for here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, before we get to the Saturday games, once again, make your plans to be in Indy March 8th through the 10th for the 2026 Barbasol Horizon League Basketball Championships. After get all the insights here from us here at the Horizon Roundtable, visit horizonleague.com for championships information, merchandise, life and league stories, golden hour content, and much more. Remember, March starts here in Indianapolis at Corteva Coliseum. March 8th through the 10th. And since we just got done talking about Detroit Mercy, let's talk about them again because they got to go up to Green Bay and play them on Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern.
I mean, depending on how things go on Wednesday, you've got two teams that could be tied in the standings. They could be, two games apart in the standings. But this is, shaping up to be a massive game, considering Green Bay is currently sitting in fourth place in the league, and you want to be in those top positions, those top five, so that you have that first round bye on March 4th. This is a big, big game. And it's also their first time meeting for the season, just like Milwaukee hasn't played Detroit Mercy, Green Bay hasn't either. And so if you're really neck and neck with a team in terms of the standings, you want to get that, tiebreaker if possible. So this is a massive, massive game for both teams. Detroit, great shooting 3-point team. Green Bay, playing defense that's just completely unacceptable right now for them. And so, that's what it's going to come down to. I feel like while Detroit has those bigger bodies in Callum Bay and in Legend Jeter, I feel like we saw a little bit from Madeline Cicic. We've been seeing more from Ramel Bethea. Like, there's some ability to counteract that for the Phoenix. But at the end of the day, if Green Bay is not going to get stopped, not going to play defense, it's going to be a long last 7 games for the Phoenix, even if this one's at home and their final home game of the season at the Resch Center as they head back to the campus facility for the rest of the season after this.
Yeah. All right. Well, the other 2 p.m. Eastern game, return matchup, Cleveland State is heading to Indy, heading to the jungle to play IU Indy. Now, one of the things I saw in the last game, in the Cleveland State win, is that Cleveland State took advantage of drawing fouls on IU Indy. IU Indy, the way they're set up, they foul. They foul quite a bit. And so Cleveland State in the first game of in their first matchup took advantage of the foul, of drawing the fouls, and I guess that's going to be their advantage again. And also the fact that the 3-point shooting for Cleveland State has improved by leaps and bounds since last we saw. Since last they saw IU Indy. IU Indy's 3-point shooting hasn't really gotten all that much better. And the other part of this is, and this also works to Cleveland State's advantage, is that when you look at IU Indy and you look at their makeup, they're not built for. It just doesn't seem like they're built to be that dominant on the glass. And Cleveland State isn't too, let's be perfectly clear. But when it's a head-to-head matchup between Cleveland State and IU Indy, I feel like Cleveland State absolutely has the edge on this, for sure.
When you're talking about the free throws, not only does IU Indy allow a lot of free throws, they don't hardly attempt any free throws. The number of times where they're like, 4 of 5 in a game or whatever, or 9 of 10.
And that's
the other
exactly
teams,
what happened in Cleveland, too.
Yeah. And so that disparity, because they're not, they're losing by double digits a lot, but they're not like, I've as a fan, I've been a part of some epically bad teams that lost by like 25 or more every game. Like IU Indy's not that. IU Indy's scrappier than that. They're a little more competitive than that, but they'll lose by 10 or 12. But if you're getting outshot by 20 at the free throw line, like, that's your game every time. But, what Cleveland State does well, IU Indy does poorly. IU Indy's not a great defensive team. Cleveland State's a great shooting team. IU Indy is not a great rebounding team, which that's great for Cleveland State because they're not either. So, I don't know what IU.
Although, the last couple of games, Cleveland State has improved on the glass, and maybe that's because they got Josiah Harris back. Maybe, I don't know, Or
Yeah.
maybe, or maybe they took advantage of the fact that all of Milwaukee's big men are basically gone.
Yeah. You know what I thought was interesting is that the KenPom stats have IU Indy for the first time that I recall all season as only the fifth fastest tempo. So
Wow.
kind of interesting. They're no longer the fastest team in the country. I'm not sure, what's changed that if it's just opponent based and they've been able to get slowed down a little bit. But just kind of I thought that was interesting for you. And of course, the other big thing for IU Indy is D'Agostino playing or not, because
That's the other
you know,
big, yeah, that's
that's
exact.
a
Yeah, that's true
that's a big
because he's
thing.
been out the last couple game. Absolutely.
Yep.
Um, and then so that's definitely gonna come into play. All right, so let us go to the 4:30 p.m. Eastern game. I feel like this is one of those throw the records out types of deals because you got Robert Morris going to Youngstown to play Youngstown State. It certainly was in Moon Township because that was an overtime game that Robert Morris was able to pull out. And I feel like this, I mean, again, despite Youngstown State's record, I feel like this is an even match. And honestly, it's pretty interesting that Youngstown State this week has an opportunity. If they sweep the week, they could theoretically get themselves out of the bottom of the standings at the very least, and perhaps potentially even leapfrog over a team like Robert Morris if things go right.
Yeah. The thing about this game is like, yes, both teams aren't playing well, but both teams have talent. I just feel like we've seen a little bit better from Robert Morris. Obviously, they've got two more wins in terms of if you're looking at it and saying, okay, who's more likely to bring their better game? Well, it's probably Robert
Hmm.
Morris because they've done it. At this point in the season, 12 games into the conference play, like if you haven't figured out how to bring your A game every time, you're probably not going to figure out how to bring your A game, like if it hasn't clicked. But yet, there's so much talent on the Youngstown roster, and there's enough length and bulk to maybe control the Robert Morris rebounding advantage, which is the one thing that Robert Morris really consistently has done all season. So I feel like this is a game where it should be a good matchup, and quite frankly, it's a geographic rivalry, albeit a relatively new rivalry. And for two teams that were expecting to be in a lot better spot, this one's about pride, baby. Like, throw
Yeah.
everything else
Oh,
out.
absolutely.
We're playing for some
Hmm.
pride now because,
Absolutely.
you don't want to get on
Better
the
believe
wrong
it.
side of this one, especially if you're Youngstown. Like,
No.
yep, you get on the wrong side of this one. If you're Youngstown, you're going to be feeling real bad about yourself. And so there's just,
Yeah, you
this one's
will.
this one's for pride.
Absolutely. Um, the next game we got is a 5 p.m. Eastern game. Milwaukee's heading down to Northern Kentucky. And one thing I did not mention from this past week is that in the loss to Oakland, Northern Kentucky was without LJ Wells. So that hurt them. That kind of hurt them. Um, I don't know what his status is this week, but they could use him this week, especially given where Milwaukee's at in the front court.
Yeah, LJ Wells is having a massive season. If he's missing, that is a big advantage for the Panthers, who are very thin in the front court spots right now. I mean, you look at who the Panthers are playing, and Chandler Jackson at 6'7" ish is kind of and then Aaron Franklin at 6'4" or 6'5". Those are their big guys. When they started the season with 6'10" and 6'8" guys in their front court, so not having LJ Wells would be massive, especially because LJ Wells is not just long and strong, but he's bouncy too, and so he's a
Yeah.
tough matchup. This one though, O'Day is and Goretzka. Like Goretzka settled for a lot of threes in the first game against the Panthers and really didn't make any. He had a kind of, I mean, by
Yeah.
his stand, I mean, I don't want to put anybody on their bus, but I mean, he had a terrible game in Milwaukee. He shot like. He made his first shot and then missed his next like 12 or something crazy like that. And so I think about this as the Panthers are depleted. Both teams are going to play fast, so the Panthers are trying to slow it down a little bit. You just got to jam the ball down their throat.
I
If
should
you're,
point out the fact that in spite of the bad shooting, I should make mention that Northern Kentucky did win by like 22, won by 18 in Milwaukee. So yeah.
yeah, but
So
I believe that was the
maybe
one.
not, maybe if they have maybe even if they either Goretzka or Kale Robinson has a poor shooting game or Donovan O'Day, I don't think they're gonna be hurting all that much.
No, but if you're O'Day, like, and this is a team that's thin and you want to play fast, I mean, just jam that ball right down their throat to the best of your ability and see what happens. Because it's
Yeah,
not like they have any bodies. They can't afford to follow you, and
true.
so I don't know. It's just it's again, it's just a super important game for both teams
Oh
because
yeah.
it's like it's John Rothstein type game. Like he wrote that book called Season on the
Uh,
Brink. I know, just but humor me. I'm bringing some references here. Like Season on the Brink. Like the season's on the brink for some of these teams right now. Like it really is in
I
terms
thought
of
that was
your
John Feinstein, not John
Rothstein.
Rothstein.
Yeah, the other John, that guy,
You know,
Feinstein.
the one
Yes,
the late John Feinstein, I might add. Wow,
yes.
how dare you disrespect the dead, Jim?
Oh, sorry about that. What book did Little John write, for that matter? But that's neither here nor there. Like John Feinstein, correct. Season on the Brink is what I was thinking of, and that's how I feel for Northern Kentucky this week, and Green Bay,
Yeah,
and Milwaukee for that matter. The season is on the brink right now. Like if you get some wins and string some wins together, you've got momentum again. And if you come out of this week 0-2, you're, I mean, you're just gearing up for March 4th in the first round because everything else doesn't matter anymore because the
yeah,
season is on the brink for some of these teams, and that's
absolutely.
and for Milwaukee, they're going on the road, and I think the scheduling's kind of funky. Like Green Bay is playing, the way that they have NKU, Green Bay, Milwaukee, and Detroit all playing each other this week, but they're at home, and then the Wisconsin teams are rotating. They're starting at Kentucky and then going home versus starting at home and then going to Northern Kentucky. Like, what did we really? I feel like what did we accomplish with that scheduling? I don't think we accomplished anything with that. So I say, give me the travel partners. That's my sidebar. Not
Okay,
this,
well,
not this random one-off home game
not
stuff.
not that bringing in Northern Illinois next year is not going to complicate anything at all. Not at all.
It's going to require a new logo when they go to 12. They can't have that
Oh, no,
11
no,
in the
no.
horizon.
Once again, let us clarify that one in the Horizon League logo represents one HL. Not has anything to do with the number 11. Keep throwing that out there.
Yeah, well, we
Which
have to
bring,
say that so we don't have to get new logos.
I don't want a new logo. Come on.
All right, fine.
We had another logo. Let's wrap this up because we got a 7 p.m. Eastern game. And we talk about I feel like this actually is one of a marquee matchup. And we're saving it for the end. With Purdue Fort Wayne, they're going to another center, they're playing Wright State. And this is going to be one of those games that if Purdue Fort Wayne wants to stay within shouting distance, that they want to stay within shouting distance of Oakland and Wright State, they got to get this game. And they got to get this game and they got to use their backcourt. They got to use the experience that they've got to use that experience that they got from that they have, they have in that backcourt that and use that to kind of have an advantage over a good Wright State team, but it's still a younger team. Um, and they haven't shown a lot of weaknesses. I mean, now mind you, Wright State hasn't shown a lot of weaknesses with this young team. They only have 2 losses to show for it, and let's face it, nobody's going to go undefeated in the Horizon League. But I feel like this is definitely going to be a big test for Purdue Fort Wayne, especially on the road, especially at the Nutter Center, where Wright State, with few exceptions, plays ridiculously well.
Well, the last time Wright State had a Saturday game in the evening against a marquee opponent, I got all excited about, like, that's what basketball's supposed to be about. And then the weather, screwed that all up and they moved the game to the afternoon. That was the Northern Kentucky game. And here you got it,
What are
6
you gonna do,
o'clock
man?
Saturday night, 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern. 2 of the top 3 teams in the league going at it. I mean, this is what it's all about, Horizon League fans. Standalone game based on the start time. I love the matchup. When you think about the big 3 guards for Fort Wayne,
Mm-hmm.
Wright State has really good guard play with
They
Burks and
do.
Cooper and Callahan, and they just they have enough guys that they can run them out there and play. And then a little sidebar, I believe Pickett is from Fort Wayne or the Fort Wayne area,
He is. That is
so
true.
maybe he wants to
They've
send a little
mentioned it many
message.
times.
Has they? Okay, I don't. I watch most of the games on mute actually, so I don't. I can't say that I knew that for sure, but like maybe he wants to send a little message home, to the fans in Fort Wayne of what they didn't get or what
What could have been.
what could have been. Because when I looked on his verbal commits, I'm not sure he had a Fort Wayne offer, so I could be wrong about that.
Say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, whatever. Neither here nor there. It is a great matchup. It is probably the most marquee matchup of the week in terms of importance. I like the Oakland-Cleveland State matchup because it's two teams that are hot, but there's a little bit of a gap in the standings. Where here, these are this is the two teams that are playing good basketball, going head to head in a standalone game on a Saturday night. I love it.
yeah, absolutely. Couldn't say it any better. So I'm not gonna. And we're gonna wrap this up. All right. So tune in next week. Until then, you can go to horizonroundtable.com. You can pull up past episodes of not just this podcast, but the regular podcast. Hey, we got one more week without me, as I believe Giovanni Mosheri is going to fill in one last time, and then I'm coming back, and it'll be live on YouTube, folks. So go there. But you already know this. But anyway, our articles are there. I'm sorry, what's that now?
You're coming back. Maybe John Feinstein's coming back. There's a lot of coming back to do.
If John Feinstein comes back, he's coming back, and this is a zombie, and then we got way bigger problems.
Fair enough.
So, all right. So, horizonroundtable.com. That's where you can find all our podcast episodes and all our articles. So, tune in next week. Until then, thank you all for listening.